Please be upstanding for I worship the Mayor and the Mayoral Party.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting, members, officers, the public and those who are watching at home. Could everyone remember to put their phones on silent, please? And I'd just like to remind members that they cannot tweet, but the public can during the meeting. I'd like to check that everyone has the following agenda documents, the main agenda and the supplementary agenda. May I remind members that all debate should be done through the Mayor and without interruptions. I would like to make sure that council meetings proceed fairly with opportunities for everyone to speak without disturbance. On that subject, I think it's a good time to remind us all that we are formally committed to civility in public life. I would like us all to set a good example to others. So whilst it is fine for us to disagree politically, we must always do so in a respectful manner. I know I can rely on members to remember this when contributing today. May I also remind you that points of order can only be about breaches of the Constitution or law. Thank you. We will now move on to the first item on the agenda. So, apologies for absence. These have been received from Councillor Karamat Malik, Councillor Sayar Raza, Councillor Sue Sampson and Councillor Jagdish Sharma. Are there any further apologies?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Kiani, Councillor Unsa Chowdhury, Councillor Mir and Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. May I draw members' attentions to the document in the agenda on declaring interests? May I ask if there are any declarations of interest from members about anything on the agenda tonight? Thank you. Agenda item number 2. The first report is simply a request for members to note the outcome of the Hamworth Village by-election held on the 4th of July 2024 and to welcome Councillor Aisha Tariq to her first council meeting. Many of us will know Councillor Tariq already, but on behalf of all members across the council, I would like to welcome her to the council in her new role as elected member. We all look forward to working with you. Agenda item 3, announcements. I understand there are several announcements to be made this evening. First, I'd like to call Councillor Redwatt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 2 announcements to make this evening. The first, it wouldn't have gone unnoticed to members that a general election has occurred. Yeah, when exactly? When did that happen? Momentous day. And whilst there is an agenda item, a motion on this topic, I think it's important as a council we congratulate the 3 winning MPs who represent Hounslow, Seema Malhotra, Ruth Cadbury, and Andy Slaughter on their elections as a council. And as leader, I look forward to working with all 3 of them as they carry through their mandate on behalf of the new incoming government. So that's the first one. Congratulations to them. The second one, health inequalities, is a key plank of work that we are carrying out as a council. It is such an important feature of our work. And of course, we must remember that we are an award-winning council. We win awards for the work that we do. Whilst we don't do it necessarily for the awards, we do it for the outcomes for our residents. I am pleased to announce this evening that we have won a prestigious MJ Award on our work for tackling health inequality. This was a joint piece of work between the council and the NHS. And I just want to read out the citation from the panel that judged our win. And they said that Hounslow presented an ambitious and innovative whole council approach to tackling health inequalities. They demonstrated strong collaborative working between different council services with health and health equity firmly embedded across key council strategies. The borough-based partnership effectively brings together health, social care, and other council services around a number of accelerated projects to improve residents' health and opportunities to thrive. And I want to put more on record our thanks as a council to the teams in the council, digital, plus also health and social care, as well as colleagues in the NHS that do the work, but also put in the submission to win this prestigious award. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ajawat. I'd now like to call Councillor Bath to make an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got one announcement to make this evening, and as some of you may already know, but Hounslow Adult Social Care Services were recently inspected by the Care Quality Commission, and I'm really pleased to announce that the outcome of the inspection was good. The council assessed CQC assessed the council over different areas, which included assessing need, supporting people to live healthier lives, equity in experience and outcomes, care provision and continuity, partnerships and communities, safe systems, pathways and transitions, safeguarding, governance, management and sustainability, and learning, improvement and innovation. The report highlighted a number of areas of good practice, but I'm just going to pick out one which I think is quite important, and it was really around safeguarding. It did state that people's safety was a key priority for the local authority, and the local authority had robust processes in place to ensure that people were safe, and safeguarding concerns were reviewed quickly. So I think that's a really good place to be in. And I'm sure you'll agree that this is a great result for a service like adult social care services, which is often under a lot of pressure with demand and financial challenges. But I'm delighted to hear that this UKC assessment actually highlighted the great support that the council provides to its vulnerable residents. So that's brilliant news. Thank you. Just finally, thank you to all of the teams that done all of their hard work. I know they had the inspection very shortly after the children, so that's a lot of inspections, but thanks to all of the teams that worked tirelessly on this, and of course to the previous lead member who held this responsibility then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. I'd like to now call Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 2 announcements. The first one is about the Youth Skills Employment Guarantee. Nearly 100 young people attended the Youth Skills Employment Guarantee finding feature event at Brentford FC last week. The event was co-designed by the Alliance and aimed to connect local young people, specifically from year 11 and 12, to young Youth Skills Employment Guarantee. Partners Marriott Hotel, Sky and Hounslow Council, in addition to Brentford FC and their Community Sports Trust. All organizations presented sessions designed to broaden aspirations and make attendees more aware of career opportunities in Hounslow. The council own work Hounslow team included career advisors were able to offer live advice along with the Heroes team and the partners for Marriott Sky, the host football club. I first-hand noticed that everyone was really happy and our youngsters were getting involved and talking to our partners and very interested to listen what Sky, Marriott and our football club had to say to them about the opportunities we have. The second announcement is about our education award ceremony, which we held last week. Myself and leader attended. It was really great to celebrate the dedication and commitment of over 200 school staff members who have worked for schools in Hounslow between 25 and 40 years. And they have collectively contributed a total of 4,078 years of services in variety of roles, including teachers, teaching assistants, cleaners, caretakers, administrators, and well as 7 of Borough's head teachers. We would like to thank our staff for organizing this amazing event and once again congratulate the awardees who have shown their passion and continued support in helping our schools transform lives and provide better future for our children and young people in the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Dunn, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last week, I attended the AGM of the London Council's Transport and Environment Committee, and I'm pleased to announce that I was appointed to the executive of that body and was also appointed to the London Fuel Poverty Partnership. The LFPP brings together stakeholders from multiple sectors to assist the Mayor in delivering fuel poverty support and works across services to identify households living in fuel poverty so they can get the support they need. In Hounslow, we are planning ahead for the future energy needs for the borough with a successful cross-sectoral workshop held last week to assist with scenario planning for our local energy area plan. And we're commencing engagement on our ambitious Net Zero Neighbourhoods programme to leverage public and private investment in retrofitting homes to bring warmer homes and cheaper bills to residents. I also have several announcements to make regarding transport in the borough. Firstly, on the 11th of July, I attended the official opening of the Felton Railway Path, a project that has long been championed by Councillor Alan Mitchell and local residents. Once an area for fly tippers and antisocial behaviour, the path has been revamped with a new surface and lighting, opening up a convenient route for people walking, using wheelchairs or mobility scooters or cycling. Secondly, this coming Friday, we will celebrate the new lifts at Isleworth Station that opened to the public last month. The station now has step-free access thanks to funding from Hounslow Council and the government's Access for All programme. We have also improved cycle access to the station and are consulting on further improvements to the station forecourt. Thirdly, we've had the most successful month yet for the e-bike hire scheme in the borough, with 81,000 trips starting or ending in the borough in the month of June. As you will know, Hounslow is trialling dedicated parking bays for e-bikes, and 95% of bikes are parked correctly. We're aware of the problems that poorly parked bikes can cause and are working with the operator and with TfL and London councils on measures to improve parking compliance. All of these things, walking, wheeling, cycling and public transport, form the basis of our transport ambitions for the borough, and we are starting engagement on the refresh of our transport strategy moving forward. There will be an online session for members this Thursday, which I would encourage members to attend, and events will be taking place across the borough for residents and stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Shaheen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And in another example of how Hounslow has been nationally and independently recognised, I'm pleased to announce that only last week we were awarded with 21 green flags. It's the highest number of green flags Hounslow has ever received, and it places us 7th highest in London, proving once again that Hounslow is not just a flight path. We have some of the greatest green space in London, and I look forward to seeing all of our residents and many, many visitors coming to enjoy our green spaces when summer finally begins.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Ashma Gurwal, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last week, our Community Star Awards took place, which I'm happy to say were a phenomenal success. You know that, Madam Mayor, because you were there along with the leader and the cabinet members, and we presented awards to 25 winners on the night, ranging from individuals to community groups. Hounslow Council celebrated the unsung heroes of the borough at our annual Community Stars Award ceremony. We recognised residents, community groups, businesses who go above and beyond to support their local communities and make a difference. All our winners play their part in making Hounslow a vibrant, community-focused borough. These selfless individuals who often go about their community work without any recognition should be commended and congratulated, and that's just what we did do with great panache and style, and it was a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashma Gurwal. I believe that's all the announcements from Cabinet today. The last announcement for this evening is to let members know the sad news that tonight is the last council meeting that Rachel McCoy, our Director of Law and Governance, will be attending before she leaves the council. Although Rachel has only been with us for just over 3 years, I know that she has left her mark here and has been responsible for setting up the council's legal hub. She will be leaving us for Newham in September, in the knowledge that she has helped create strong legal resilience for the council into the future. On behalf of all members, I would like to wish her well for the future. We'll now move on to the next item. We now come to the minutes of meetings of the council held on the 5th of March 2024, the 26th of March 2024, and the 28th of May 2024. May I ask members if they have any corrections that they wish to propose? Councillor Giles?
Apologies, I'm trying to find the page. But item 17, it's actually a matters arising. In the minute, I had a speech that I was interrupted due to time, which I can understand. But at 10:58, the sentence says, at this point, Councillor Stroud-Turp expressed concern that Councillor Giles's speech was treading close to PERDA restrictions. I've since brought that up with the monitoring officer, and I believe she says that it doesn't contravene. So I would like either a note to be entered to contextualise that it's actually didn't break PERDA rules, as it was ruled as such.
And I can confirm we've been in correspondence about that, and that is the case, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Giles. Sorry, Councillor McGregor?
Thank you very much for recognising my concern about page 30 of the current agenda. Item 4. And this is for the meeting on the 5th of March, when I presented a petition. And there's been no communication from the council whatsoever. And I note with some anger that on page 72, this has been sidelined under a rule presented for tonight, tonight is a long time away from March the 5th. And during that period of time, no information about the petition was forthcoming to me as the sponsor or to the organisers of the petition who are in the Chiswick Homefields ward. I wish to protest in the strongest possible way.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Noted. It'll be taken up with you outside the meeting. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is actually a matter arising, so it's not exactly for correction, but certainly for matter arising. Page 67, item 9, when you were congratulated, and I congratulate you again for being the mayor, and you said you would not be doing it this evening, which is a reference to Gaza. Since we spoke last, I think a further 3,000 women and children have been killed.
Councillor Mann, this is not the point of matters arising. Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I
No,
think
please.
It's to do with the minutes.
Excuse me?
It's to do with the minutes and matters arising.
No, it isn't. You're using this as an excuse to raise the matter again. Please.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking the question that should have been asked.
I'm asking you to stop, please.
Madam Mayor, I give way. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more amendments, I would like to ask members to agree the minutes. Thank you. We move on to item 5, petitions. Are there any new petitions to present this evening? Councillor Lukey.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a petition with 92 signatures from residents of the Bassett Gardens, Jersey Road, Cranmore Avenue, Penwerris Avenue neighbourhood. It says petition Bassett Gardens and Jersey Road junction safety with poor visibility of oncoming westbound traffic. Residents of Bassett Gardens, Cranmore Avenue and those from neighbouring roads have grave concerns over the lack of driver and pedestrian safety measures at this junction. Issues include excessive vehicle speed on the bend at 155, 157, 190 Jersey Road by the hole in the wall public footpath access to Osley Park, limited effectiveness of traffic calming by this location, displacement of traffic to Cranmore Avenue junctions. We call on Hounslow Council for immediate investigation of effectiveness of current local road safety management, measurement of the impact of speeding vehicles on this stretch of Jersey Road, proposals to make road junctions safer, sharing a range of improvement solutions with residents, which may include an additional hump nearer this junction, a slow down driver's warning sign towards a blind corner, installation of a convex mirror at the other corner. That's it.
Thank you. If there aren't any more, we move on to the second part of the process.
Oh, there is one. There is one.
Another. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to present petition regarding parking signed by 105 residents. Oh, is it working? Yeah, okay, right. Madam Mayor, petition contents are: you may be one of the unlucky residents who have received a parking fine for parking outside your own house recently. When the parking bay were introduced years ago, we were advised by Hounslow Council that you are allowed to park outside the way of your own house with no penalties. We are now being fined for doing this. The parking fine states one or more wheels on or over a footpath. This is no different than parking in the marked bay. Plus, if we all parked on the road, no large vehicle would be able to get down the road like a fire engine. We need to stand together and fight this, as this will affect parking for residents and for friends and family who wish to visit. Therefore, we are hoping to meet with our local MP this weekend and would appreciate if you could sign this form below the help support our claim to keep allowing us to park outside our own house with no penalties. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no more, I would like to move on to the second part of the process. We have no petitions for consideration at the council meeting itself this evening. And now may I ask members to note the petitions listed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6 is the Scrutiny Annual Report 23-24. We now come on to this, which is the report. Sorry, I've just said that. In the absence tonight of the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Raza, I would like instead to invite Councillor Junu Mia, the Vice Chair, to speak to this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing the annual scrutiny report for 2023 to 2024 to Borough Council. As the Vice Chair of the committee, I'll be introducing the work of other members from the previous municipal year. Councillor Foot as Vice Chair, and variously Councillor Bidoff, Councillor Butt, Councillor Giles, Councillor Kamran, Councillor Malik, Councillor Sharma, Councillor Tak, and Councillor Amar, as well as former Councillor Lara Parizato. However, having spoken extensively with Councillor Raja, who is now in his third year as the chair of the Council's Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I'm able to draw out some themes that I would like to highlight to Borough Council: governance, innovation, and impact. Scrutiny is an important element of good governance. In 2023 and 2024, OSC continued to hold to account, to review and develop policy, and to look beyond the council as we considered the impact the Metropolitan Police and the NHS on Hounslow. Scrutiny matters reviewing the work of council and other partners help ensure we can assess our policies, programs, and performance, always mindful that scrutiny serves the interest of Hounslow residents. Turning to innovation, the committee and its panels looked again at new ways of making differences. We are a formal committee of the council, but scrutiny in a day with housing association was a new way to tackle a complex issue and encourage effective partnership working. It was considered a success by members and the guest, and will form a part of this coming year's scrutiny landscape as well. The report I present today covers broader spectrum of areas, ranging the anti-social behaviors to quality housing, the council budget and financial strategy and healthcare. The annual report captures the work and contribution of members and their guests, as well as scrutiny panels, our call in subcommittee, and our scrutiny in a day approach. A brief overview does not do the work of panel justice, but if you want to know more about their policies, recommendation on biodiversity and flood resilience under the leadership of Councillor Omar, and Councillor Sidhu's focus on school readiness, or the employability support available to people with SAND. As investigated by Councillor Sharma, I would like to urge to spend some time to reading the report. The annual report is all about impact. It is a celebration of the power of scrutiny to drive positive changes. It highlights success stories where our policies have made meaningful differences in people's lives, showcasing the potential for good governance to uplift and empower. This success, a reminder of what we can achieve when we work together with purpose and resolve. This focused impact will continue, and this year we look forward to understanding from the Center of Governance and Scrutiny how work done took towards the end of 2023 and 2024 municipal year can help ensure that scrutiny continue to work well across the council. I know Councillor Raja appreciates the constructive relationship that exists between scrutiny and executive. And if I might make a comment as a vice chair, I hope this spirit of respect and collaboration continues in this municipal year and beyond. I propose this report.
Thank you, Councillor Mia. Councillor Rajawat, would you like to second the report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second it and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite members to comment on and discuss the report. Okay, so I'd like to invite Councillor Emsley to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As a member of last year's Housing and Environment Scrutiny Panel, I wanted to put on record my support for this report, and particularly the recommendations we made with regards to implementing the urban greening factor and a full annual audit of trees planted by the council. I'm really pleased to have been able to work cross-party with colleagues to propose environmental policies which will make a tangible difference to our borough. I want to thank Councillor Umair for the way that he expertly chaired our panel, and also put on record my thanks to Yusuf Patel, our brilliant policy officer, for that panel. I also want to thank Joe Gilbert of Wild Chiswick, one of my constituents, who we were fortunate enough to have as a co-optee on the panel. Joe brought an invaluable amount of experience and insight to our work, and is a great example of how this council works best when it works together with local experts. I have no doubt that if adopted, the full list of recommendations made by the panel will go some way to ensuring our borough truly does become greener. It's not all good news in the report though, unfortunately. And I am disappointed to note that page 15 of this report confirms that all 5 of the recommendations made by the Housing Scrutiny Panel and accepted by this administration a year ago have not been fully implemented. I've made the case time and again that housing in this borough is creaking and does need the cabinet member to make a series of urgent changes. The report notes that the urgent review into empty council homes in the borough promised by this administration over a year ago has still not taken place, that changes to the housing repairs system promised by this administration over a year ago has still not happened, and that the benchmarking of the homelessness journey in Hounslow, promised by this administration over 2 years ago, has still not taken place. In fact, Madam Mayor, this report confirms that of the 15 recommendations made by the Housing Scrutiny Panel over the past 2 years, just 4 have actually been completed. Madam Mayor, the scrutiny panels are here for a reason. We want to help this administration to make the best choices for our borough. The failure to implement bipartisan recommendations has a very real impact on our residents. Residents like my constituent, Frank Mercedes, whose heartbreaking story of being forced to live in awful, mould-ridden conditions was highlighted by the Chiswick calendar just last week. There are a ready-made set of recommendations in this report from the past 2 years that this administration could adopt tomorrow to help residents like Frank and fix this borough's housing system. So I welcome the report, its recommendations, and the constructive bipartisan nature which they were reached. And I urge my new colleagues in the main overview and scrutiny committee to use our position to ensure that these recommendations, where accepted, are actually implemented in full for the good of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emsley. Councillor Giles?
Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to sit on scrutiny at the end of the last year on one day that I believe ended up being a 12-hour day for the committee panel that day, for the scrutiny committee that day, where we, as Councillor Mayor has said, we use this innovative process of scrutiny in a day to look into our some of our housing providers in the borough. I have to say, I thought that the whole point of this panel was to question and review the policies and the information we were put in front of us. And I was extremely disappointed since the beginning of that process that I wasn't getting enough from the rest of the committee at that time. I believe on the day, Councillor Sharma, sorry, I'll get there enough. Councillor Sharma and I used that day to properly scrutinise and question some of the information that we were given. We were taking the opportunity to ask the housing associations questions that, quite frankly, we should have been able to have that information in advance. In the planning process, there was a lot of no's to questions about data that meant that stuff that I would have thought would have been readily available just wasn't, which meant that we weren't in a position to do the job as thoroughly as I would have liked. And maybe it's I've got standards that don't align with, or my expectations of standards don't necessarily align with what we are able to achieve. But it was a really fascinating experience, and I really welcomed the opportunity to do this. Much like in that meeting that same night, I found some holes in the report that we were given, and the reports that we were given from the subcommittees. And alongside that, I think this also goes back into, sometimes it's very useful to get the information in front of us, but we often have to question what's not in a document. And that is equally as vital. And I'm going to reiterate this because I have a personal interest, but when we are talking about flood resilience and our scrutiny paper makes no reference to tidal or river flooding, when we live on one of the biggest rivers in the UK, where over the winter we had tides of 7 meters reaching Molesey Weir and going over Sunbury, it is very disappointing that we are not getting, or not even looking forward to looking at what we can do to establish a really stable flood resilience for the residents of our people. And I really do hope that we can now start to forge some of those plans as the Joint Thames Strategy undertakes its refresh, which will help guide the council with its local plan as well as feeding into the London plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Okay, Councillor Bruce.
Yes, thank you very much. I would just like to congratulate Councillor Raza and all the committee members on fantastic work this year, and for Councillor Raza over the past 3 years. Scrutiny forms an important function in the development of this council, in the development of the cabinet, because it is there to scrutinise the work of the council, but broadly the cabinet and the cabinet's decisions and the things that we put in front of the residents, and ensuring that they're gone about in the right way. I welcome comments from the opposition there. In part, there seems to be some really good stuff that they're talking about there, but I find some of it a little bit strange. Councillor Giles almost was saying that she was disappointed she had to ask some questions about things. I mean, I thought that's what scrutiny was about, is asking questions, that she almost expected everything to be there in front of her so that she could tick it and go, all done, and then just go on with her day. Scrutiny is about asking questions. It's about making sure that the information is looked at and questioned. And that's what I always appreciate from scrutiny whenever I go to a panel or go to the main committee. And Councillor Elmsey, some really positive things. I have to commend you for that. But then talking about the fact that almost suggesting that we haven't bothered, or the council hasn't bothered with some of the other stuff, which is not, well, that was the implication, which is not what it says here. It says that these have been completed, but these other bits are yet to be completed. They're under review, they're being worked on, and that's where we are with it. That we take very seriously what scrutiny says, we take very seriously what scrutiny recommends, and we do as much as we can with the resources that we have. But where we can't, we highlight that. We say, this is under review and this is what we're going to be doing in the future. And that's what this scrutiny report is saying that is happening at the moment. So I come back to the fact that really grateful for the work of scrutiny. I really value the scrutiny. It can be a very critical friend at some points to members of the cabinet, but that is what it's there for, and I appreciate that. So thank you again very much for the report, and I am grateful for the comments also that have been made across the opposition. Thank you.
If nobody else wishes to speak, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to really put the record straight, not quite sure what speech from Councillor Giles, Councillor Bruce was listening to. I think Councillor Giles's point was that at the 12-hour housing in-depth away day thing, she and Councillor Sharma were the only people asking questions. I think that's the substantive point she was making. So to impute that she is somehow a lazy councillor who isn't doing her job properly, I think is quite a serious and inappropriate thing to say.
Let's be clear, that isn't what I said.
I think we should move on. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. So would Councillor Meir like to sum up?
No, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like members to note the report, please. I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions. We now move on to agenda item 7. I would like to start by expressing my thanks to both group leaders who have very kindly confirmed where there is cross-party support for this item, as they have been working collaboratively on the proposals before members today. I'm grateful to them both for their cooperation. I would like, therefore, to suggest that we go straight to the vote. Marvellous. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so we can move on to item 8. Item 8 is the Treasury Management Annual Report. Members can find the covering reference report from Cabinet in the supplementary agenda and the main report at pages 232 to 304 in their main agenda. I'd now like to invite Councillor Shantanu Rajawat to propose the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a referral back from Cabinet. This is, as you said, the Treasury Management Annual Report, which covers the period 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. This will be a report that Council is used to seeing every year, and it follows on from the mid-year update we presented at the middle of last year, in fact. This details the investments and the borrowing that the council undertakes in order to fund our corporate plans and our ambitions on behalf of residents, and is a requirement under the CITFA code. The report is very self-explanatory, and I'll take questions on that. It is incumbent on me, in the interest of full transparency, to highlight in particular para 2.4 on page 233, two issues of compliance that are listed on that page. They are there for you, for members to see, but I can report to council that both of those issues were brought back into compliance, and I have no further concerns on those. So I formally move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. I'd now like to invite Councillor Bruce to second the report.
Very happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, I would now like to invite members to comment on and discuss the report. Councillor Todd.
Thanks very much. This is a very handy situation where we can challenge the leader. Leader, late last year at Cabinet, you increased the number of Cabinet members who were monitoring Lambton from 1 to 3. Okay, well, if you believe in what I'm saying, that's a fact. I'm happy to show the documentation. But the whole idea was that, in our view and many others, that Lambton wants a far more aggressive and robust oversight and governance. The committee you sit on, the shareholder meeting which deals with Lambton, you attended a meeting in February, but the meeting in June was not held. Interestingly enough, in June, your head of finance signed a single member decision requesting £100,000 to get independent accountants to come in to do an oversight of Lambton as their business plan. He was concerned about the business plan. He was concerned about their lack of any income. I'm using a very loose term there. It's not making a profit. And more concerning was that it appeared from the papers that had been in the Cabinet papers late last year that in order to achieve progress, this group of companies required more money. Now, why am I raising it now? Because we'll see in these papers that the Lambton entities, if I can call it that, leader, borrow a lot of money. And I think it's fair to say that your head of Treasury has some reservations about one or more aspects of the finance. And indeed, you have put a block on additional funding without a business case being made to the head of finance. That's in the report now. So what I'm really saying now is, would you give us an update as to what's going on at Lambton? I see, by way of example, that Mandy Skiller is now going to be running it for 3 days a week. Was the move by the head of finance to seek £100,000 to check the accounts done with your endorsement? Was it discussed? And any other issue that you feel we should know? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Would anyone else like to comment? Councillor McGregor.
I noticed the concern evinced by the mayor at my standing up. The way she announced my name was one of trepidation and hopefulness, a combination of the very nicest kind. So, Madam Mayor, welcome to your first meeting. Such a pleasure to see you in position. In terms of the Treasury statement, well, there are concerns, partly because, of course, the cabinet meeting wasn't held, so we couldn't see substantial values in other directions. So that is a paper which is actually there for our use. Presumably, it is subject to no public display. But the important thing about what we're looking at tonight is I've got some very great concerns. We've got some interesting numbers here. Let's start off with page 257, and it's paragraph 3.22. And it states here that there's additionally prompt payments for services from the council has supported the cash position of the subsidiaries. That's, of course, we're referring still to our trading company, taxpayer shareholder owned, which is in trouble. And the trouble is they actually get prompt payments. Does this involve favoritism? Does this mean that other people are not being paid promptly? And that would be a matter I would pick up with the auditors at the earliest possible opportunity if I'm not given satisfaction this evening. So, preferential terms. This is not a good idea. They're not meant to be some sort of charity, unlike CIL, which I managed to demolish some 15 years ago. So when we look at what goes on, turn over the page to 325. Paragraph 325. Total closing balance for the Lambton concerns, £387,763,000. I would like a confirmation from the lead member for finance, who is also the leader of the council tonight, that £387,783,000 has asset cover, that there is no insolvency, that there is no liquidity problem, that there's no liability on the taxpayer to make up any shortfall in that sum. And if I don't get a satisfaction, I shall then be reporting this to the external auditors with a comment from my side. If you'd like then to turn on to page 260, paragraph 3.33, policy on the use of external service providers is the heading. We use the services of Link Asset Services. Yeah, they're known to me. Not professionally, but they're known to me. Question then is, could the lead member for finance, also the leader of the council, please tell us what they actually do? And I'm not asking to see a contract with them, because that would probably be commercially confidential between the two parties, and I appreciate that confidentiality. But we need to see substance. What do they actually do? Are they there to ensure that we have the linked asset, which I'm talking about, to cover our liabilities? And the worrying thing for me, with my public administration background, is I see dark clouds. We're not getting to the grips with Lambton. Yes, they're outside. We're not getting to grips with Lambton. We're not getting the turnover plan. It's a reflection of my comments in January at the budget proposals, and then again in March at the budget meeting. I was concerned then. I have deeper concerns now. The new finance director is probably suffering from what is called in the accounting profession a concern subject to the heebie-jeebies. In other words, he's asked for £100,000 to be spent on outside consultants to confirm his fears. We have had no further word from the Borough Finance Director on that matter. So this evening's meeting is not before time to assess what's going on here. If the leader can satisfy me, I'll be more than pleased, because it means we have safety for Hounslow. If the leader cannot satisfy me, the reverse is true, and we might have to take Hounslow apart brick by brick.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor, I think. Would anyone else like to speak? Otherwise, would would Councillor Rajawat like to sum up?
Councillor McGregor, I spend a rather large amount of my time satisfying you. On this one, there you go. There you go. I could have gone there. I went there. Right. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to respond on a couple of things. Councillor Todd, you will be aware that a number of changes have happened in the governance and oversight between the council and Lambton. Those are all in the public domain. Those have all gone to cabinet. So those are well rehearsed. And I'd ask you to refresh your memory on those. That includes a shareholder committee made up of 3 councillors. That is not me putting 3 people in to overlook a Lambton. That is part of the governance structure that is in place, and that, in my opinion, works very well. The review that you mentioned, I think, is a prudent step for a new Section 151 officer to do an end-to-end review of the companies, just to be assured under their responsibilities. It does not mean that there is a fundamental problem, and I say that to both yourself, Councillor Todd, and Councillor McGregor. We have to remember that Lambton does provide a number of key services that residents value, and that needs funding, and they do need funding. But that is also supplemented as part of that review with a strategy for growth, which again is well established and in the public domain for anyone to look at. I have to say the relationship between the council and Lambton is better than it's ever been. That's not to say it's perfect, and I won't say it's perfect, and I don't think Lambton would say it's perfect. But to your point, Councillor McGregor, there are not dark clouds here. There is just transparency, and we need to be transparent about it. There are areas of focus, and we must focus on those. Everything is audited. So if you wish to make a referral to the external auditor, you are more than welcome. You may well already have the answer there. In terms of your question on link assets, I just refer you to paragraph 3.35 on page 260. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. So I would now like to move to the vote. Like to ask for votes for the recommendations. Thank you. And votes against and any abstentions. No. Thank you. Thank you. So now move to agenda item 9. Members can again find the covering reference report from Cabinet in the supplementary agenda and the main report at pages 305 to 321 of the agenda. I would like to invite Councillor Tom Bruce to propose the report.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to be bringing this report in front of you this evening. We find ourselves at a crucial stage in the development of our local plan, going out to consult at the Regulation 19 stage. 3.7 of the report talks very succinctly about why we need to have a local plan, why a sound local plan in our borough is important. It needs an up-to-date local plan to deliver the borough's strategy for development, growth, conservation of heritage and environmental assets, and measures to help tackle the climate crisis over the next 15 years and beyond, ensuring consistency with up-to-date national planning policy and general conformity with the London Plan. So Background to this, I've said this, I think, a couple of times when I brought various stages to you before. 2015, we had a local plan that was adopted, but at that stage, the inspector said we need to look at two areas again and have those areas as a review mechanism. For various reasons, including COVID, but other reasons as well, that took a lot longer to come forward than we hoped, and then it was hoped. And by the time we got into 2022 or beginning of 2023, it was very clear that we were a long way from the adopted plan in 2015. And the inspector said to us at that stage, a huge amount of work was done, but the inspector said to us that at that stage, we do need to look again. So we took a step back, we withdrew those various volumes, and we've amalgamated into a single local plan. And that's what we're talking about this evening, that amalgamated, that consolidated single local plan. It's really crucial that we're all very clear about what this is tonight and what it isn't. It isn't the council agreeing the local plan and tomorrow that's it, and we just get on with it. There is still a long way in this process to go before hopefully we adopt. It is adopted, I should say. It gets adopted at the end of next year. So we're still probably 18 months or so away from that. What this is the council, us tonight, agreeing to the Regulation 19 stage, which is going out to consult on our proposals. And those are the proposals in front of you this evening. This is the version that we will be submitting to the inspector. There will be a huge amount of consultation. There has been a huge amount of consultation already, and a huge amount of that, all of that will be submitted. And I hope people continue to get involved in this process, although this is the last stage for any new people wanting to get involved in it. By the end of this Regulation 19 stage, those people that have consulted will be the ones that will be included in that final submitted bundle. It will also include updated evidence base about why we're making changes that we have done, not just from the 2015 local plan, but also from those area reviews and the work that's been done around 2021 and 2022 up to this point now. That talks about why we're not taking forward Greenbelt release for housing. It's why we are still taking forward the proposal for Greenbelt release on employment, but it must be said, much significantly reduced area for that employment, and why various measures on housing and the environment and employment and sustainability are being taken forward, and where that evidence base comes from. So I'm extremely grateful to all the officers that have been involved in producing this, not simply in the last year or so, but actually since 2015, I should say. This has been a long time in process, using all the information from right back then. But the work that's been done in the last year, since we have decided to, and since it was agreed by council to consolidate into a single local plan, has been absolutely fantastic. And to see all the various bits come together and come together on time, on our time frame that we were talking about. I know Councillor McGregor asked about that at a previous meeting, making sure that we were following the timeline. We are where we said we would be at this stage. So I have full faith that we will get that adopted local plan in 2025. So I thank you all very much.
Now I'd like to invite Councillor Shantanu Rajawat to second the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second and reserve my right.
Thank you. So we move to debate. So Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. 9 years is a long time, isn't it, to get this plan together? And I'm not quite sure you can. It wasn't just COVID, was it? I think we didn't quite get our ducks in a row there. But the point you made, actually, just very briefly, was the one I wanted to pick up on. I think in earlier versions of this, we did share the views of many local residents and environmental groups to do with the plans to build on the Greenbelt. I think up to 45% of it was meant to be built upon. So obviously you've mentioned there that you've withdrawn that element. The Greenbelt land, Bedfont Lakes and Heathrow Gateway, Mayfield Farm. And I think we're delighted to do that. It is very hard, isn't it, to be a council who quite rightly talks about the importance of green space and biodiversity and climate change, and yeah, we want to build on the Greenbelt. I'm just really asking for your assurance that as we move forward, this council has no intention of building homes on the Greenbelt.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor McGregor.
Madam Mayor, may I put on record my thanks to Councillor Bruce for his comment about the planning process being on time. It's very welcome to hear that you've got the matter in hand and that you expect the date to be met. Thank you very much for that promptness.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Anybody else like to speak on this? Okay. Okay, so sorry. So if Councillor Bruce would like to sum up, please. Sorry.
We've known each other a while, Karen. We can be Tom if you want. In terms of Greenbelt, yes, I mean, it is probably the most controversial aspect of all of this. I completely acknowledge that. It's why I brought it up, to be honest. It would be foolish of me not to. It's important to stress Greenbelt isn't all created equal. There's a variety of designated Greenbelt sites in this borough, some absolutely fantastically performing, some really rather the opposite. And the Labour Party, Labour government like to talk about this in terms of grey belt. And we just need to be clear that when we're talking about Greenbelt, we're not talking about lush green fields and all of that. We are talking about a variety of different things. It's not that this council has aspirations to build over all that Greenbelt. We absolutely do not. And we couldn't. There has to be a demonstration, if you want to build on Greenbelt, that exceptional, very exceptional circumstance, I think that's the wording, I'm looking at the chief exec, that's the wording in planning terms, very exceptional circumstances are met in order to do that. We had an announcement this week that Sadiq Khan has agreed to that building on a small section of Hanworth Park. That is Greenbelt, and that is accepted as very exceptional circumstances. But what we're talking about here is saying that there will be Greenbelt release in order that applications can come forward in a slightly different way solely for employment, that our housing need can be met elsewhere on nothing that's designated Greenbelt. But that doesn't mean that things like the Hanworth Park site can't be brought forward. But they all have to go through the planning process. This isn't carte blanche. The local plan isn't carte blanche to just do what you want. It is to say, this is how we see these sites, this area, how we want to develop things, but that you still, developer, person, or whoever you are, company, have to go through that planning process very rigorously and extremely rigorously when it comes to Greenbelt. So I think hopefully that gives you assurance you need about the process that needs to be gone through in order to get where we are. So I just, in summing up on this, I'm really delighted that we've got to this stage. I'm really delighted Councillor McGregor has acknowledged that we're on time with this. I mean, I can't promise that we will be in 18 months' time. A lot will depend on the inspector, but we so far as a council are playing our part. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. So now I'd like to move to the vote. We're voting on the 7 recommendations in the report. So everybody who's in favour? Thank you. And against? Abstain? Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for all your contributions. And we move on to agenda item 10. This is appointments, a standing item on our agenda. Are there any nominations for appointments? Councillor Stroud-Turk, please.
Yes, some appointments to some of the scrutiny subcommittees and panels to complete the Labour vacancies. The Children's and Young People Scrutiny Panel, the additions will be Councillors Lambert, Tack and Tariq. To the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Panel, there'll be 2 Labour additions, which will be Councillors Saeed and Attawell. to the Housing and Environment Scrutiny Panel, there'll be one addition, which will be Councillor Tack. And to the North West London Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, there's one Labour addition, and that will be as the second member, and that will be Councillor Tariq.
Thank you very much. And our members agreed? Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 11, decisions taken under urgency arrangements. I ask members to note the report listed on the agenda front sheet. Noted. Thank you. We now move on to questions from members. Agenda item 12. This is the part of the meeting where we deal with council questions. We have 5 this evening and a total of 45 minutes to deal with them. May I ask Councillor Alan Joseph to ask the first question, please?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Our Onslow Council's recent survey of residents showed payment and road maintenance had 2 of the lowest satisfaction ratings of all of the council services. I would like to ask a question to why does Councillor Grewal think this is?
Thank you. I would now like to ask Councillor Gurrawell to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Joseph, we take all survey responses very seriously. Hounslow roads have been independently surveyed and assessed, and being some of the best in London, consistently on top 3 for 4 years running, in competition with Westminster. The PFI for Hounslow maintenance has been instrumental in allowing the investment into our carriageways and footways that wouldn't have been possible without. Hounslow Highways, through PFI, continue to invest in our highways network with full schemes, as well as repairing defects that pose a safety hazard to any highway user. Additionally, the council itself has invested into the network with PFI would not intervene. With the successful pothole pledge in the last administration and with the upcoming pavement pledge due to start this year, which will run until March 2026. I would like to make you aware that we are a listening council and we appreciate the views of our residents to improve our quality of our services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shivraj Gurrawell. Does Councillor Joseph have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. So with regard to the dates and timelines, I just understand about the March 2026, but how it has been kept informed to the residents about these improvements?
Well, Councillor Joseph, you should be aware that as far as the footpath pledge is concerned, an email was sent to every councillor in every ward that which footpath would you like to nominate. And this information is available online. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Gurrawell and Councillor Joseph. The next question, Councillor Gabriella Giles, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 years ago, this administration promised a weekly cleanse of all streets in the borough, coordinated with the weekly recycling collection. To date, this pledge is still unfulfilled. Now that we have a new member for highways, will Councillor Gurrawell please finally implement this promise?
Thank you, Councillor Giles.
Gurrawell, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly, we will be implementing this plan, and optimizing cleansing remains our top priority. There's nothing to laugh at. The council continues to investigate to determine how best we can achieve this pledge, which is still on target for an improved street cleansing operation. This has to be balanced with changing in legislation that is being introduced and is collaterally being appraised. As a cabinet member, I can confident in bringing forward recommendation for implementation very quickly to the cabinet in November to be implemented thereafter. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Shivraj Gorawal. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do.
Councillor
Thank you.
Giles, thank you.
I'm curious as to the points what you mean by changing legislation. Does that mean that this council was making pledges that it couldn't actually fulfil under the law? And then also, you mentioned that this was on target, but I'd expect that a target to be defined within at least 2 years of a pledge or promise being set. And what is that target? You've given us a date of November, but does that mean you'll actually have the funds for it? There was no mention in the budget, I believe, in our discussions in March. So yes, those are my questions. There's more than one.
As far as your questions are concerned, our targets, the changes, circumstances change every time, things, and we have to get and implement things according to the circumstances. So this recommendation is being already discussed in the cabinet, and that is why I'm saying that we will bring it to cabinet in November. There are certain changes we are bringing, which I'm sorry I cannot disclose them at the moment, but will be available to you when I bring it to cabinet in November. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Shivraj Gorawal and Councillor Giles. And we move on to agenda item 14. And Councillor Emsley, would you like to ask your question?
I would love to. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fifth time lucky for an answer. According to Hounslow Highways inspection regime, the intervention level for potholes on residential roads is a depth of 75 millimetres. Does Councillor Garawal believe it's safe for a cyclist to pass over a pothole that is 70 millimetres deep?
Well, I can give you this answer in a word, or I can explain that. Okay. Potholes, unfortunately, are increasing all over UK, not just in Hounslow, but nationally, given the amount of finance available to the highway authorities over the last 12 years, has been reducing year by year in real terms. While that's correct. While there will be an element of cyclist strip on residential roads, the majority of the journeys would occur on roads with dedicated cycle lanes, either newly built, segregated lanes, or existing lanes, or on the side carriageways. As far as your question comes to a 70 millimeter depth, right? You are aware of that. On the main roads, it is a 50 millimeters depth. On a cycle lane, it's a 25 millimeters, and on a residential road, it's a 75 millimeters, right? Residential roads, there is less traffic and visibility is more. If there is a pothole, a cyclist can maneuver, has more chances of maneuvering, but in spite of that, if the width of the pothole is quite large and it's in the middle of the road, there is no harm and there's no reason why it cannot be patched.
Thank you, Councillor Gorawal. I'd like to ask Councillor Emsley if he has a supplementary question. I would also like other members to be quiet while people are speaking, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do. Sixth time lucky for an answer in that case, I guess. Just a quick context to that. Cycling UK survey recently found that a fifth of cyclists have actually been involved in accidents involving potholes. So it is quite a serious issue. I didn't hear an answer because residential roads don't have the visibility that you're talking about. And residents in my ward have complained about the depth of potholes on residential roads and the danger that causes them. So I guess I'll ask again, is a 70 millimeter depth safe for a cyclist? And if it isn't, will you change Hounslow Highways guidelines?
To be very honest, I will give you a very honest answer, and the answer is if the depth is up to 70 millimeters, it is a risk, and if it is there, it can be patched. Simple.
Thank you, Councillor Gurwal, and thank you, Councillor Emsley. So, agenda item 15, I would like... Sorry. I would like to ask Councillor Marina Sharma to ask her question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to ask, can the Cabinet Member, Councillor Ajmagara, provide an update on the Council's work on transforming our community experiences and the radical overhaul of consultation and engagement in our borough, please?
I'd like to ask Councillor Ajmagara to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Marina Sharma. I love talking about TCE, and here you go. Are you ready? Right, I'll go into detail. Transforming our community's experience of interacting with Hounslow Council is at the heart of the Council's corporate plan ambitions. We want residents, local businesses, visitors, and partners to have consistently good experience of the Council, receiving the timely and high quality responses they need. Central to the TCE programme is the development of a new resident experience service, approved at Cabinet July 24. This will bring together delivery across all our access channels, including online services, community hubs, libraries, and telephone calls. Its vision is to ensure resident experience is inclusive, positive, and right first time, that we listen and act on resident feedback, working together to co-design services and achieve improved outcomes for our communities. The arrangements in place will resolve inquiries at first point of contact and proactively seek resident feedback to inform how they keep improving services. There will be a rollout of the core community hubs offer in the borough's 11 libraries and Hounslow House to provide a consistent face-to-face service. The first of these projects will see the relocation of Cranford Library Service to Meadowbank and creation of a new community hub. There will be an improved digital offer through the refreshed council website, meaning many more residents will choose this option to access services and receive timely updates. We will empower our residents to help themselves and, where needed, give them the knowledge, confidence, and tools to get online. These new arrangements will reduce volumes in areas such as telephone calls and emails, meaning that more time for staff to provide better support through telephone and face-to-face channels for those who need it. We will measure success through capturing and publishing service performance insights through a set of indicators which capture the end-to-end resident experience. Also central to TCE is the Service Transformation Project. This will design, create, and implement changes to resident interactions across 30 services. It includes changes to technology and end-to-end processes with the associated contact activity, moving into the resident experience and locality service. The new service and projects are expected to be rolled out through the TCE program in December 2025, and also to the council's corporate plan is the commitment to transform and improve how we engage with residents, businesses, partners, and community organizations, and involve them in decision making. We will ensure that all voices from our diverse communities shape what we do. This ambition is being delivered through the radical overhaul of consultation and engagement program. After several months of co-creating a new model for how we engaged, shaped by more than 1,200 staff, members, residents, CVS groups, and partners, this was approved by Cabinet in May this year. Through its new principles, processes, and practices, it will achieve the ambition of an effective whole system approach to engagement across the Council and partners. It will enable equality and diversity of representation, demonstrate how people are shaping decisions, and show how this is leading to better outcomes. So there are elements of the new model, which I'll go through if you want me to. A new engagement vision statement and set of principles to which engagement activity must adhere. A new consultation and engagement toolkit with a range of advice on methods, particularly around reaching represented groups. A new engagement network to support the coordination of engagement and sharing of best practice. A new residents panel, which can support a range of engagement activities. The continuation of the evaluation of area forums to make them feel more meaningful, relevant, and inclusive. Establishing the Hounslow Assembly and Assembly on the Road, establishing a quarterly cabinet question time. And a new set of performance indicators will track progress, and there will be regular reporting on the progress on these. So the new model should also yield future financial savings and protect against avoidable costs through more efficient allocation and use of resources, reduced duplication of effort, reduced use of third parties to carry out engagement, and reduced risk of complaints and legal challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurrawal. Councillor Sharma, do you have a supplementary question?
Not a question, Madam Mayor, but thank you, Councillor Gurrawal, for a very in-depth report. That's fantastic for what we're doing for our residents.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Ashma Gurrawal and Councillor Sharma. And agenda item 16, Councillor Farah Kamran, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 years ago, Hounslow Council announced Grow for Future as the UK first policy to transform wasteland and turn it into spaces for urban children to grow food and learn about the sustainability. Can the Cabinet member give us an update on the progress? Thank you.
Councillor Shaheen, please.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Cameron. Grow for the Future, since I came into post in 2022, has been my flagship policy, and it's very much born from the same desire as many of the things that Councillor Bruce was talking about, and it's how to use that unloved, often unusable, often unused, and often very poor quality green land that we have in the borough and take it into service for the public good. And in this case, the public good is transforming it into orchards, community gardens and allotments and pairing them with local schools so that kids in often deprived urban environments can learn about those things that many people in rural communities have on their doorstep, such as learning about where our food comes from, learning about healthy lifestyles, learning about biodiversity and sustainability. And I'm very pleased to say that after 2 years of hard work by our teams, our officers, and our multitude of stakeholders out there in the community, we have finally seen Grow for the Future bear fruit. And that is in the development and launch of the first 2 sites as part of the Grow for the Future programme, which opened last month. Those are on Westmacott Drive and Brabazon. And they're it was fantastic to see the response to those sites. It was fantastic to see the transformation of those sites. In Westmacott Drive, for example, a scrubby patch of grassland, fly-tipped, turned into wildflower meadows, fruit orchards and bushes, and sunflower planting as well by local kids who had responded and said, you know, the kids who are coming down from the local school there One of them talked about how he had suffered anxiety, how he wasn't focused on his work, and being out there amongst nature, going out there, having structured planting sessions, thankfully supported by Cultivate London, had really focused him, had really helped him with many of the issues that he faced in his education, and countless stories like that of children who are really enjoying those new sites. I'm very grateful to everyone who's put so much time and effort into those first two sites. They very much prove the concept, and I'm also grateful to the government and the GLA for the £165,000 in grant funding that we received to prove that concept, allowing us to take it forward. We now plan to open up to 4 new sites per year going forward, and we're now in the process of scoping out our new sites. I'm also grateful to Downton Abbey's Jim Carter, who came down to see the kids planting and massively got behind it. He was very excited about it and very keen to advocate for it, which means that we can go out there and shout about what we're doing. It is the first policy of this kind in the country, and now we can prove that Hounslow is blazing a trail, and we can go out there and say to other councils, come and see what we're doing. We're very happy to help you if you would like to do something similar.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Cameron, do you have a supplementary question?
No, Madam Mayor, but I would like to say thank you to Councillor Shaheen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron and Councillor Shaheen. We now move on to the motions. Agenda item 17. And we have 3 motions to consider this evening and only 30 minutes to discuss them in. So may I ask members to bear this in mind when making your contributions. We'll move on to the first motion, and I invite Councillor Rajawat to propose the motion, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. In 1997, the last time there was a landslide, I was probably too young to appreciate the magnitude of what had happened and how the political ground had shifted. Then again, after many decades, or many years, sorry, of Tory mismanagement of our country. However, as I alluded to earlier today, on the 4th of July this year, history was once again made and a Labour government was elected. And I suppose perhaps as council leader, but also as someone who's a tiny bit older, the magnitude of the occasion could not be missed. And we have to remember that for 14 years, the previous government, the Tory government, had managed the decline of the country and the decline of standards for our residents. What was characterized in those 14 years was a complete ignorance of public service. And that ignorance, I'm afraid to say, has carried on this evening with some of the comments that our opposition have made. And that is a real shame. They need to understand that people wanted change. They voted for change decisively. It's not just a hallmark of our democracy. It's an indictment of their record in government, and that should never be forgotten. But from the ashes of their government rises a new government, now firmly in the service, back in the service of people, of our residents, of Hounslow residents. No matter what the division they try to cause, we are ready to serve, and we will serve the residents and the people of this country effectively. And it's great to see that just in, 3 weeks, the amount of work the new government has done puts a shame to 14 years of their inaction. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The challenge before us is great. They have left us the worst economic inheritance of any time possible, I think. The challenge before us is absolutely great. But our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, the first female Chancellor in our history, is steadfast and focused on bringing us back to economic stability. And that is number one on our agenda. And that will allow Britain to unlock its best days. And those best days come ahead of us. We have a role in local government. For too long under their government, we were asked to step in without the funding. Now, there may not be new funding, but there are new approaches. And a lot of the signals are that the new government is willing to work with us in local government. Indeed, 80 new Labour MPs, I think, by my count, that's your party, are Labour councillors. So they understand local government like their government never did, and they are willing to work with us. And this is what this motion talks about. There is so much here in Hounslow that we can help the new government understand in the landscape. We have for so long stepped in to solve some of those wicked problems that their government buried their heads on, that actually we have an evidence base. Earlier tonight, we talked about health inequalities on parks and open spaces, in leisure, in the way we fundamentally work and walk with our communities on their journey, the way we prevent crisis happening. There is so much that we can offer. And I know from announcements that have been made publicly, but also conversations with local government before the election, this government stands ready to support in any way that they can. And that is the biggest change. So it does bring me great pleasure to laud the fact that there is a new government, that there has been change, the democratic process has run decisively, but also that we now have a government that is willing to work with us to really tackle some of those wicked challenges that the previous government didn't. And that, in that vein, is where some of the recommendations that come out. It's not just a letter of congratulations, it is also saying that as an award-winning council here in Hounslow, we stand ready to help, to support you on that journey, and we will be there in every part of your success. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. I would now like to invite Councillor Kuldeep Tak to second the motion and speak if he wishes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to congratulate our three newly re-elected Hounslow members of Parliament, Seema Malhotra MP, Ruth Cadbury MP, and Andy Slaughter MP. I would also like to congratulate Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, and all of its members for securing a landslide victory on 4th of July. Hounslow Council has long been advocating for a multi-year funding settlement for councils. But it has been falling on deaf ears for years under the Conservative government. But now there is a change in the government, and after 14 years, we have a Labour government, a government that puts the national interest first, a government that works for everyone, a government that is striving for growth of this country, a government that is determined to do the right thing. The leader is right in writing to the Secretary of State and call for a fair multi-year funding settlement, extend the Household Support Fund, make Britain a clean energy superpower, transform life chances, and to continue working in partnership with LGA, London councils, and our MPs to strengthen the relationship between the government and the council to achieve the best for the London Borough of Hounslow and its residents. Therefore, I second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tak. I'd now like to invite members to debate the motion. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What a difference a Labour government makes. We have gone from a Tory administration accused of allowing the UK to lose its climate leadership by its own former energy minister, rowing back on commitments and issuing new licenses for fossil fuel extraction, the root of our problems. We've gone from that to a Labour government, which in one of its first moves removed the de facto ban on onshore wind farms. The next day, the UK's National Wealth Fund was launched, providing a £7.3 billion fund aimed at powering green investments and infrastructure development to boost the economy and to promote clean energy, with the goal of enhancing energy independence and tackling climate change, the biggest problem this world has ever seen. Labour has ambitious plans to make the UK the green finance capital of the world, to decarbonise electricity by 2030, to set up Great British Energy, to invest in clean energy technologies, to improve water quality in our rivers and the sea, and to introduce the Warm Homes Plan to help households cut costs by installing insulation, solar panels, and low carbon heating by 2030. Having led our declaration of a climate emergency here in Hounslow in 2019, it's a relief to have a government that takes it seriously. In Hounslow, we now have the advantage of a Labour council, a Labour mayor, and a Labour government working in tandem to tackle the important issues, including the climate crisis.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Mushiso, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome to your place. I would also like to congratulate the new Prime Minister. It is a remarkable achievement. However, the Labour Party takes office with its lowest vote share of any incoming government in living memory. But for any true Democrat, no matter how narrow the victory might be, or how little we know about their policies and vision for Britain, it is true that we must listen to the will of the people and accept it. However, this motion tonight lacks the humility or the occasion. We have seen the way the new Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition and the way in which they've conducted themselves recently. So it's a shame that it's Hounslow Labour who are the first to lower the tone. They can't help themselves. Their utter contempt for anyone who believes in lower taxes, in traditional family values, in personal responsibility is palpable. This motion is like that handlebar mustache on a round face. It doesn't quite fit, does it? It's cringeworthy. It seems to be an attempt to get noticed. That's why you have a mustache of that nature. It is trying to be noticed by the Politburo at Labour HQ. That's what this motion is about. It has nothing to do with local resident or local issues that we face today. The motion talks about chaos of the last 14 years. Well, in the last 14 minutes, there's been chaos in Parliament with 7 suspended Labour MPs. When you talk about 14 years of chaos, look in the mirror, Labour members. Look in the mirror. You've been in charge of this borough since 2010. And what have you got to show for it? Well, Hounslow is a tip. Our pavements are hazardous. What's happened to sweeping our roads on a weekly basis? The leader of the council once said. Well, that's actually just rubbish, isn't it? Keeping our taxes low, well, that's just rubbish, isn't it? Keeping our fees and charges low, well, that's just rubbish. Where is the motion about that? Hounslow Labour seem to believe that all they need to do is get voted in a local election, sit back and blame central government, and then repeat. Since winning in 2010, what have they done? Well, they won, they sat, they blamed. only to repeat it again in 2014. Win, sit, blame, repeat. And in 2018, win, sit, blame, repeat. And since our resident, and since 2022, look at them now. They just sat there, sapping away the ambition of our residents, creating an environment of dependency and blame. It is no wonder Hounslow is a tip. Who has been in charge? Who's been in charge when Hounslow's housing tenants live in poorest conditions imaginable, as Councillor Emsley has already mentioned? Who has been in charge when Hounslow's properties sit empty and families wait for up to 6 years to be housed? Who's been in charge? Well, Madam Mayor, here is how you take responsibility nationally. 14 years, yes, have not been easy. We've had COVID, we've had Putin's aggression. But yet, the Conservative government has, against the odds, the Conservative government against
Can we
the odds,
keep quiet, please?
the Conservative government, against the odds of this challenging 14 years, have left office with a growing economy, inflation back to 2%, and far better public finances than when they took over, from New Labour in 2010. In 2010, we faced an economic crisis. You remember that. But now, then the deficit was 7%. Now the deficit is 1.9%. We were in the deepest recession in history in 2010, and now we have the fastest growing economy in the G7. Public sector borrowing is now at 3%. It was 10% in 2010. Madam Mayor, we have the lowest unemployment in history. And so we did have one unhappy camper walk the floor. We did, and he has already spoken. While countless more have walked the floor from the Labour side with allegations of disgust, of bullying, and anything else under the sun. But when Councillor Tuck speaks again, perhaps, he would tell us, apart from the possible diselection from the Conservative Party that he was facing, what attracted him to Labour? What attracted him to Labour?
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
He's
Point of
an
order.
honest man.
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor Stroud-Turp.
He's an honest
No,
man.
Councillor Stroud-Turp has raised a point of order.
This is an unwarranted
number?
personal
Which
attack on
number?
a fellow councillor, and Councillor Machito should withdraw that comment immediately or face a sanction.
Madam Mayor, is a matter of fact.
Councillor Tack, would you like to respond?
Madam Mayor, my fellow councillor here is talking about my possible hypothetical deselection, whereas I had already said several months ago that I will not stand as a Tory candidate in 26.
So my point still remains.
Thank you, Councillor Tack. I would like to remind Councillor Machisa about civility that I spoke about at the beginning of the meeting, and can people keep quiet while I'm talking, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we've had one unhappy camper walk the floor. They've had countless others. But Councillor Tuck is an honest man, and I believe that. So, and I know that desperate times call for desperate measures. So I don't blame him for wanting to save his skin. If he is truly honest, as I think he is, he will tell you that only the Conservative Party on this side are thinking seriously about reducing residents' council tax across the borough. Only the Conservatives on this side are serious about addressing the issues of potholes and pavements across the borough.
Wishes to intervene.
Only
Point
the
of order again, Madam
Conservatives-
Mayor.
Another point of order.
I thought there was a time limit on speeches to motions, and I have a funny feeling that Councillor Machito has gone almost double the allowances allowed and should immediately sit down, because I am starting to get a serious headache.
There's been 2 interventions, Madam Mayor.
Well, sorry, just to clarify. So it's 30 minutes in total for this whole section. So it's 30 minutes for the entirety of motions without a further extension. So it's about, I don't know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you. It is if he's truly honest, he'll tell you that only the Conservatives on this side are thinking seriously about reducing people's council taxes. Only the Conservatives on this side discuss day and night about how to serve the community ward by ward.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Even with their
Point of order,
stonking
Madam
majority.
Mayor. I don't wish to challenge
Yes.
the monitoring officer,
Councillor-
but the rules are quite clear that speeches should be no more than 5 minutes.
To sum up then, Madam Mayor.
No, he's gone well over 5 minutes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, you need to conclude now.
To conclude, even with a stonking majority in Hounslow Labour for the last 14 years, 4 terms in charge, a Labour mayor, a Labour prime minister,
Councillor
they still
Moshiso.
sit, blame, and they'll repeat until they get
Sit
voted out.
down now, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor McGregor.
Madam Mayor, I wish to raise a point of order under standing orders. Madam Mayor, I wish to raise a point of order under section 1.1, which is regarding the chairing of meetings. And if people fail to observe the chair's requirements, they are liable to discipline. We have heard the chief whip of the administration talking through on several occasions. The issue is he's breaching 1.1, and he's also breaching the rules because when you ask for standing order, you've got to quote the number.
Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to do that. No, I've got it in front of me. This patronisation by the opposition is pathetic. We started off in such a good spirit, Madam Mayor, and the opposition have reduced it to pettiness and a completely unnecessary speech from Councillor Moshiso, which I'm sorry, was ruined what was actually turning out to be quite a positive meeting. And I can only express regret that the opposition have not entered it into the manner that we hoped this council would continue.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. My name is Councillor Moshiso, not Moshito.
Could we move on now, please? Councillor Thompson.
Right, I'm not sure what's going there. Right, actually I wasn't going to speak much tonight, but I am because I've heard a lot of rubbish. The claim that you've inherited the worst economic circumstances since whichever point in history you want to take are nakedly, politically, and deeply dishonest. It's just not true. So I'm not going to go through the facts and figures, but they're in front of me. I'm a bit older than you, Councillor Roger, just a little bit, a few more years. And I guess my formative years were in the 70s. And I remember that another Labour government, which managed to mess up the country quite a bit, led to 18 years of Conservative rule. So I think we just need to perhaps grow up a bit and stop demonising what went on before and claiming that it's all going to be Pollyanna, wonderful and gorgeous moving forward. Again, now we're meant to be happy that we have a Labour council, a Labour mayor and a Labour government. But again, we've been there before. Brown, Livingston, Anne and Alan Keane. And that didn't go too well, did it? But I'll be honest with you, obviously there was a massive desire for change. Not stupid. We saw the results and we saw the polls. I think it is worth reflecting that folks wanted shot of the Conservative government. I don't quite know if they fully realised what they were getting, because the share of the vote, I think, would be a cause of concern for me. So please don't perhaps confuse that parliamentary majority with a massive mandate to do whatever it is. We're not quite sure actually what that is. But we do want you to, we do want the government to do well. We want them to deliver on the promises they make, because a lot of them actually, let's be honest, were very similar to many of the promises in our manifesto. You know, we were going to build a few more houses than you and this, that and the other. There wasn't actually a massive difference between the two. But we need the government, whichever government it is, to do well. We're not opposing. I never have opposed for the sake of it. But we will speak up when we disagree. As I mentioned before, we did have that time of a Labour council, a Labour mayor, and a Labour government. And the end result of that was an administration led by yours truly. So I do hope, in a sense, maybe history repeats itself and we get more and more of those wonderful people in Hounslow perhaps realising that there are other options other than the Labour Party, and there are other views and other ways forward. And maybe, who knows, when I retire in a few years' time, I might be stepping into your shoes. Thank you all.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. May I move suspension of standing orders on this item, please?
A second.
Has everyone agreed? Thank you. And I would now like to ask Councillor Amrit to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, true, up the workers. I too like to congratulate Keir Starmer on his victory, and a great victory it was too in terms of landslide. But you know, I think there lies the problem. When you have such a large majority that's being given to you by the people who are looking for change, looking for something different, you have to deliver. And the time when you have to deliver is after the honeymoon period. All this self-adulation about, you know, we've done this, we've done this. It's only been 20 odd days into this government. Let's see what happens 6 months into it, because the financial element of it is one where everybody, if you watch the news, the Labour Party can make all the promises that it likes, along with the people here, the Labour councillors. When it comes to delivering it, the money is going to have to speak. There is a ticking time bomb. That's adult social care and children's services. That hole is getting bigger day by day. Central government has passed the buck onto local government. Local government, vast majority are almost bankrupt. If this continues, this council, along with others, will also be bankrupt. I cannot see how a Labour government that is coming this July is going to address that and ask to take back that debt when people like Tony Blair and others were pushing all the cost base onto local government. I can't see how they're suddenly going to say, look, all of that was wrong. We're going to take it back and we're going to fully fund you. This is something that the people in Hounslow and up and down the country are looking to have addressed. I don't think after the honeymoon period runs out, these sort of dribble that has been written here in this motion is going to mean anything, because the tax burden is going to go up. Whether you like it or not, it's going to go up. And we will see if this Labour group is still singing to the same tune that they are singing today about the adoration of central government. You know, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. Let's wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Sidhu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's very unfortunate the person who won nearly 5 elections on rows are speaking on this tone. He was a councillor when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. He never thought of resigning and speaking up. And today,
it was 8 elections, not 5. 8. Get your facts right.
8 elections. Okay, sorry, Mr. Mann. 8 elections when a councillor won on rows. Today have a audacity to speak against Labour like this. Thank you, Mr. Mann. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I heard from the opposition today. And it's astonishing they live in the same United Kingdom. 14 years, every public sector ruined. I can only talk about courts. I have judges saying, go and complain against us because we are not getting any money. Prisons are shamble. Probation officers not recruited. Because of that, mental health is a big issue. And these all things are jointly combined. And this opposition, I think, where they lived last 14 years, that's unbelievable. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sidhu. Councillor Shaheen and then Councillor Chowdhury, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Well, I'd like to take my chance to correct Councillor Mashiso's homework. He is a teacher, after all, so I hope he will accept me correcting his sums. He talks about the economic inheritance of the Conservative government when it came into power in 2010. Well, the economy was growing in 2010. When Gordon Brown left office in 2010, the economy was back to growth again. That was thanks to interventionist policies, and it went down again. Exactly, it went down again because of austerity. George Osborne pushed the economy twice into recession after that due to a rabid program of austerity that slashed money from public services just when they were needed most, pushing millions into poverty. Let's look at another statistic that Councillor Mashiso put out. You talked about how we were at a very low level of deficit. Well, you didn't talk about debt, which is now at close to 3 trillion. That's unprecedented. 3 trillion. 3 trillion. What was the ambition of the Conservative government? 3 trillion in debt. But that's just a number on a balance sheet. Let's talk about what this means in human terms. 3.2 million people are now using food banks on an annual basis. 4.3 million children are now in poverty. NHS waiting lists are off the charts. Now,
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Is it a point of order, and can you quote?
1-1.
Councillor
Madam
McGregor.
Mayor, you announced a suspension of standing orders, but there was no time limit attached to it, I understand. There was no time limit, so therefore it's gone 9:30, it's time to end the debate.
No. It goes to 11 now. In which case it goes to 11. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention, Councillor McGregor. I will finish my point, but I won't take too much more of your time. Now, you've heard the statistics, you've heard the brutal reality of Conservative Britain, and I think I always like to say that I never like to ascribe to malice what can be put down to stupidity. But the truth is, it is both in the case of the last Conservative administration. The Conservatives that have immiserated this country, brought low the poorest and most vulnerable, and in one of the richest and greatest economies on earth, we have become a laughingstock on the world stage. That is the inheritance that Labour has taken up from the Tories, and that is what we've got to turn around. It's going to take many years to do so, but we've made a great start, and therefore I commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Chowdhury, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've heard a comment about the honeymoon period, but as a note, I think I would like to say I haven't seen anyone gone on honeymoon since the elections. I think the Prime Minister has been working from the day one and all our ministers. But as I know, as a lead member for Children's Services, we have done so much without proper backing from the former government. After years of Conservative chaos in the policies, the skill system in England is confusing for young people, adults and employers. Skill storage and the widespread, young people have been left without the opportunities they needed for the last 14 years, that result in an economy without the necessary skills or any plan for skills needed of the future. Labour will address this by bringing forward a comprehensive strategy for post-young 16 education, and will guarantee training and apprenticeships or help to find work for all 18 to 21 years old. And when we just talk about Hounslow, I'm sure everyone in this chamber have heard Councillor Lillibath announcing our secrecy inspection, that how safeguarding is important for us as a borough and as a cabinet member, how and our leader, how we have worked hard to keep our adults safe without the funding and what funding we've been getting for the last 14 years, and the work we have already starting and we are doing, and I'm sure that we will be getting support from the centre government, maybe not straight away, but a bit later. But I'm really proud of each and everyone here, all our cabinet members and leader, and I'm really thankful to him for bringing this motion on the table today, and I fully support him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. If nobody else would like to speak, would Councillor Rajawat like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Labour side for their contributions. I think the result of the election and the way the campaign, certainly in Hounslow, was run, certainly shows the opinions and actually the way the debate has run shows the dividing lines that we take into 2026 as well. On the one hand, we've got those who accuse us of, quite rightly, pointing out injustice and social inequality playing out before our eyes and tell us we're complaining about it, whilst not acknowledging the work that we are doing. And they can talk about vote share, they can talk about potentially having my seat. Well, if they get it, they get it. But on recent evidence, I'm afraid you are far away from that, both in terms of the way people have voted, both in the last local elections and at the general election. And with an attitude like you have displayed today as an opposition, I'm afraid you have many more years of opposition ahead of you. But nonetheless, this motion is about the government and about the actions that we can take. And I reiterate, there is much that we can help the government with, and I will take them on face value if they want to offer their assistance. It will be gratefully received, but I won't hold my breath. There is much that we have done, and with the various layers, a Labour council, a Labour mayor, and a Labour government, the power to transform this country is great. The expectation is great, but the evidence that I've seen, as Councillor Chowdhury pointed out, so far suggests that we have hit the ground running, and we will continue to hit that ground running. And here in Hounslow, we will continue to do our bit for our residents, but also for the country, because the best days of this country are ahead of it, and it is under a Labour government. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. I would now like to move to the vote. So could everyone raise their hand who's for the motion? And against the motion? And any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. I'd like to move on to the next motion, which can be found at agenda item 18. And I therefore invite Councillor Dan Bowring to propose the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was the late Steve Curran who said to me, when someone has a quality home, fit for their needs and family size, everything else gets better. Kids do better at school, health outcomes improve, stress decreases, the likelihood of conflict goes down, because high quality and affordable homes are vital for our health and well-being, and they have a direct impact on our NHS, education system, work, communities and prosperity. Put simply, people cannot get on in life if they do not have access to good quality housing. That's an inescapable fact. 105 years ago, Lloyd George promised to build houses for those returning from the indescribable brutality of the First World War. Then, like now, we had insufficient housing. Then, like now, many lived in overcrowded, substandard or unsafe housing. And then, like now, the government of the day stepped up to the plate. Lloyd George's fulfilled pledge made council homes a major part of the housing system in the UK. Many of those homes are still here today, although the heroes for which they were built are not. And just as those heroes deserved homes, so too do NHS workers, teachers, the people who recycle our waste, sweep our streets, provide us with food, keep us safe, keep our country running. They, like everyone in this country, deserves a decent home. They don't deserve to be stuck in overcrowded, substandard, or unsafe housing, as millions are. In our country, 1/3 of under 34-year-olds still live with their parents and struggle to move out. 300,000 people are homeless. 310,000 children are forced to share a bed with a family member. 142,000 children live in temporary accommodation. They fill the Stadium 8 times over. And it's at a massive cost to the taxpayer, £1.7 billion a year and rising. 3 million council homes have been lost to Right to Buy. 1 million households, not people, are on council waiting lists. 4 million people live in substandard homes in the oldest housing stock in Europe. And no wonder we've seen house prices relentlessly rise. Mortgages harder to attain, rents spiraling out of control. In every part of the housing market, there is insecurity, unaffordability, and distress. This includes boat dwellers, victims of a silent scandal where they have none of the protections of people renting a bricks and mortar home. They're at the mercy of moorings landlords and can face exorbitant, opaque costs, poor management, and the ever-looming threat of instant eviction should they complain. And what's ludicrous is that this is not one of humanity's great unanswerable and oft-debated questions like the meaning of life, solving world hunger, a peace in the Middle East, or interstellar space travel. There is a known and settled answer to this problem. And the countries that have implemented it don't have the problems we do. Now, even though a year 10 economics student who's learnt the law of supply and demand could tell you this, a multitude of reports, data, analyses, case studies, and more makes clear one simple, indisputable fact. We need to build more homes in the places where people want them. To do otherwise is to court economic, social, and increasingly political disaster. It is essential that the generations who have managed to secure their own home pass on this great gift to the cohort of young people who are finding it increasingly difficult or impossible. We must not pull up the ladder. Rather, we must find the bricks. We must pour the foundations. To do otherwise would be a dereliction of duty. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowring. I would now like to invite Councillor Emma Yates to second the motion and speak to it if she wishes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bowring. I'm delighted to second this motion, which tackles our housing crisis. I have personally been affected by this very real and serious issue, which is very close to my heart. Having a home to call your own is more than a physical space. It holds an emotional connection and provides a safe and secure environment. It's the foundation of shaping childhood experiences and development. There are far too many people in the UK who do not have somewhere to call home and the sense of permanence and security which that brings. Too often I speak to residents who are in desperate need of housing, whether it be to no-fault evictions, overcrowding, living in bad conditions, or simply not being able to afford private rent in the current market, especially if they are claiming universal credit. The reality of owning a home has become a very distant dream for so many. Despite the Tory failure of building genuinely affordable homes, I am proud of the homes that Hounslow Council have built with the support of the Mayor of London. I visited a development last week at Charlton House in my ward, Brentford West. We managed to secure over 50 million from the GLA to build state-of-the-art homes, which are all council housing. This is in addition to the 425 homes that have been built across the borough in the past year. What an achievement. Labour are going to get Britain building. Hounslow have already started. Labour's target is to build 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years. This is the biggest boost to affordable housing in a generation. Sadiq smashed the government target of building 116,000 new homes, trebling the delivery from the level inherited from the previous mayor. Imagine what we will achieve with a Labour government. Labour will protect greenbelt land. The release of lower grade greybelt land will be prioritised, and golden rules will be introduced to ensure the development benefits communities and nature to build homes and infrastructure. We need to continue to work together with the Labour government and the London Mayor to make sure that everyone has a home, decent living conditions and hope for the future. I therefore commend this motion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. I would now like to invite members to debate the motion. Okay, Councillor Emsley, if you'd like to start.
Go on then, Madam Mayor. It's been a rowdy first meeting for you. Good luck for the rest of them. Can I just say, 2 really good speeches, genuinely. Agreed with almost every single word of both of those speeches. Almost. That's the rest of the speech. In lots of ways, I'm really sympathetic with what I think the core of this motion is trying to get at. You know, the single biggest issue that this country faces, as Councillor Bowring rightly said, I think is the housing crisis. And there is a fairly simple solution. We just need to build more homes. And I will say there are councillors on the other side, in the spirit of a bit of bipartisan, cross-party working, that I really respect. Councillor Williams is one of them. Councillor Stroud-Turp is another. Because on this issue, they don't just talk about the need to building more homes. They actually follow that up with action as well. And that is so important. The reality, though, is that rhetoric around housing often, outside of those examples, fails to lead to that actual action. So whilst the sentiment around this motion probably comes from the right place, there is, of course, a frustrating irony that many Labour councillors who vote for this motion this evening have actively campaigned against the new homes that we desperately need. Let's take a look at a few examples just here. This motion talks a lot about new developments in Feltham, rightly. Here's a quote from a Labour councillor in Feltham North in a local election leaflet that he published. He said, and I quote, "The massive house building programme currently planned for Feltham is unacceptable." He said, "If elected, I will fight as hard as I can to tackle this incessant house building." That doesn't sound very pro-housing from Councillor Kuldeep-Tack. So I wonder if he will be backing this motion this evening, saying one thing in this chamber, but doing something very different when he actually has the chance to back new homes. It's not just Councillor Tack. That would be unfair to single him out. There are others. So let's move across to Osterley, where the 3 Labour councillors proudly declared, just before the last election, quote, "No other candidates have done more to battle development proposals than Councillor Tony Lukey," he's nodding along, Councillor Unsa Chowdhury and Aftab Siddiqui. "We have faced derision and criticism, but the 3 of us shall continue to encourage the Secretary of State to dismiss out of place and overbearing developments, not just on Syon Lane," they added, "but elsewhere in our ward as well." They'll back this motion this evening, Madam Mayor, but fought tooth and nail against new homes in their own ward. And then there's Councillor Bowring, who spoke so well and proposed this motion, but is also guilty of saying one thing this evening. And it pains me to say it because he's such a nice guy, but doing something very different when it actually counts. A couple of months ago, he was asked to back a planning application to turn a derelict site into 124 new homes, a new special educational needs school, and an improved public realm landscape. What did he do? He refused. And in this month's planning committee, described as utterly shambolic by the council's legal officer, Councillor Bowring voted against an application for 60 new affordable homes in Brentford. Now, I'm not saying this to embarrass people, but the important thing is this is once again hollow words this evening and no action when it counts. Madam Mayor, the fact that it's now more common for people my age to live with their parents and to own their own home is an utter travesty. Successive governments have got it wrong, but change is needed not just at a national level, but at a local level 2. So I won't be voting for this motion this evening because point scoring, hollow words and self-congratulatory letters won't build the homes we actually need. And I would just gently say to some of my Labour colleagues, they will be judged not by their words this evening, but by the actions they take outside of this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emsley. Councillor Lillybath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just in response to Councillor Jack Helmsley, I think you'll find everybody who is a Labour councillor in this chamber supportive of building homes for. They might be fighting for better quality homes, but they're certainly supportive of building. Yeah. So I want to make that point very clear. But I absolutely support this motion. I took on the housing portfolio very early on in 2018, and obviously I knew what the situation was with regards to homelessness in the borough, but I was really shocked to see the number of people that were on the waiting list, and that only increased over time. I think you're absolutely right. It's absolutely depressing to see young people not being able to get onto the housing ladder at all, or be able to rent, pay for affordable rents or to buy. But I think one of the most depressing things that I've ever seen as a councillor when I did have the housing portfolio is a number of children that actually sent me an email saying that they had been evicted several times during their lifetimes because parents could not afford to pay the rent. So I think we've got to keep banging that drum about the housing crisis, and I do absolutely condemn the conservative policy over the last 14 years that actually has increased homelessness in this country, and that is shameful. So I'm really pleased to see that. I know that it's going to be a big challenge for the Labour government, but at least they are looking at some of the solutions, that not just house building, but looking at some of the root causes of homelessness, which has never been addressed by the Conservative government at all. So I absolutely support this motion, and it's right that we bring it here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. Councillor Mashiso, you have 5 minutes maximum, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this motion by Councillor Dan Bowring, because I think it speaks about the magnitude of what the issues are in Hounslow. And Councillor Yates spoke very well for her first inaugural speech, and well done. And I agree again with what you said there. So congratulations on that. Like you, I've also had experience of council housing and being on the waiting list. As a fostered child, we are often put at the forefront of the first available property. But then it goes to unaccompanied minors who take priority after that, and then mothers with children, and then families. As I've said before in this house, in this chamber, beg your pardon, there's always been a long waiting list. That waiting list keeps mounting up. And now, with the new Home Secretary rightly ending the housing on boats and hotels, that issue is now going to get even worse for us here in Hounslow. That waiting list of 6 years on average is going to go up. And we need to be bold as a council to address that injustice. But Councillor Lillybath talks about the Conservative government not doing its bit. But let me remind her, I'm sure she knows this already because she did have a housing portfolio when I first was elected, that the Mayor of London is the person charged with house building in the borough with his London plan. In fact, in 2015, he was given nearly £5 billion as part of a package to build 116,000 affordable homes by 2025. We're now very close to 2025. He's built 55,000. So he's not even fulfilling his pledge. So how interesting that Councillor Lillibath talks about a Conservative government when the Conservative government has given the funding and has given the authority to go ahead and build. Now, I understand there are issues of quality and so on. Okay, but like Councillor Yates already said, we speak to residents each and every single day, waiting to be housed. And yet, this council has not taken the bold action. We have nearly 500 empty homes in this borough. 500 empty homes. And we talk about waiting lists, we talk about housing crisis. There are 500 empty homes. In my ward, just yesterday, I saw 2 of those empty homes. They've been empty for 2 years. So we need to be bold. We need to cut the red tape, and we need to address what we can do. Now, we won't build. We have a population of 228 million, so 228,000 in this borough. We won't be building for every single person, but we can take action and house those 500 empty homes with the right occupants. So whilst I agree with Councillor Bowring, Councillor Yates, and everybody else who has spoken, including my colleague, Councillor Emsley, I urge you all, after you vote for this, to take bold action. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mashiso. Councillor Shaheen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to pick up on a few points that Councillor Emsley raised, and particularly what I would say to him is don't mistake hypocrisy for scrutiny, which is the role of all good councillors. Now, the important and salient point here is that Hounslow has met its housing targets. We built 1,000 social homes in the last administration. We're building 1,000 new social homes in this administration. That means we can afford to be robust. We can afford to be scrutinous. We can afford not to be bullied by developers into accepting bad plans, but into fully scrutinising them to get the very best developments for our residents. Now, I'm grateful that you didn't mention my name as part of your list of shame, but I also opposed a housing development in my ward. I fought and beat the Duke of Northumberland to prevent 80 new houses being built on the site of Park Road allotments, a 100-year-old wildlife haven which has first fed wounded soldiers returning from the First World War. Now, I did that safe in the knowledge that we had thousands of flats going up in brownfield sites in the area, because that was a bad plan. And we had many better plans going on that we could support. And I think it's very important that we have councillors like Councillor Bowring who are willing to stand up and say, yes, we need more development. Yes, we need more housing, but we won't accept bad plans. We will only go for good plans. And that's because we don't just want to build places where people can exist. We want to build places where people can live. And that means quality of life.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Councillor Lambert, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I have a very brief thing to say. Within my small ward, there are 3 substantial approved planning applications, which will offer substantial numbers of affordable housing, hundreds of them. They are not being built. They're not being built because there is an overly ambitious requirement by developers to make profit, and they've got to do it against the interest rate created by Liz Truss and the other governments that we've had for the last 14 years. We're eager to get these built. We can't because of the incompetence that we've had in government for the last 14 years. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say I very strongly welcome this motion and the Labour government's new commitment on this. I take Councillor Embley's point. The Tories obviously tried last time to reform the planning system, and that did not go so well. And I accept that that's because it ran into the politics, and people like Theresa Villiers and others didn't have the guts to see it through. We need not just to, say these things. You're right. We actually have to deliver them, and it requires a change in mindset and a change in being bold in the area of housing. We have to actually say yes to things. There's always lots and lots of reasons to say no. You can find millions of reasons to say no, but actually, when you come down to it, there is no solution to the housing crisis, none at all, for anyone, whether they're in social rent, shared, private rent, whether they've got a mortgage, whatever, that doesn't involve building a lot more houses, and a lot more houses in a lot of places. And we live in a city. A city is a pretty good place to build houses, so it is on us. But I will push back a little bit, because I think the argument that we haven't been bold doesn't stand up. Hounslow's been walking the walk on this for a very long time, and has been taking difficult decisions, including ones where, it has caused problems within our own group, as ones you pointed out. But we have taken those decisions. Hounslow Town Centre regenerated. Brentford Town Centre undergoing regeneration. Anyone want to go down to Brentford, if you haven't, and have a look at what is coming online there and see the change that's happening, and tell me that isn't better than what was there before. And we're meeting our housing delivery tests again. I think the latest draft scores are out. We've got 4,380 against the target of 4,330 for the last 3 years. This is a council that delivers, and we need the rest of the country. I can think of some boroughs very nearby, which I won't name, who need to step up to the plate and do their bit, because we're doing ours here. And I'm very proud of that fact. And it's one of the things I will always shout proudly about this Labour Council. And I hope we continue in that vein. And I strongly support this motion. But we do have to be bold, and we have to take the tough decisions. And I think we will continue to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Giles, please.
Thank you very much. Like some of my best underprepared speeches, I hadn't planned to speak today, but I'm actually really quite reassured by the breadth of types of housing that we are speaking today in this motion. We've spoken about social housing. Of course, we have a need for that. We've spoken about our empty properties. But I think the thing that I struggle with in this motion is a statement about having affordable, secure home is difficult for many people due to rising. Sorry, apologies, the type's really small. Due to rising private rents and lack of genuinely affordable homes, and it's not the sentiment behind that. I think for me, it's more about what does that mean in real financial terms. I mentioned to Councillor Bowring at last week's planning meeting that what do we mean by affordable homes and genuinely affordable homes? I am a single woman who's lived in London for most of my life. Due to rent rates increasing last year, I had to move back in with my parents because I have not got the benefit of the bank of mum and dad who can help me with a deposit for a payment, for a down payment, which seems to be the way that most of my generation have actually been able to get onto the housing ladder. If we look at what affordable homes are, to get a mortgage for a one-bedroom apartment at £600,000, which I believe is what some of the flats were going for in Chiswick, you have to have a salary of £70,000. That puts you in the top 5% of earners in the UK. That is not affordable. And I think we can all agree on that. So what I would actually like to see is some terms behind this, or some figures, because we know that, as Councillor Lambert said, you have to compromise with developers, and they do need to make a profit because that actually helps us to make our properties livable and secure. But we haven't always had that in the last year. We do have an aging housing stock in the borough. But even we're lauding the developments in Brentford, and I do agree with a lot of what's gone on there. But back in 2014, people were complaining about the wind tunnels that we're going to experience as a result of some of these developments. I also have to be aware and conscious that as we go through the next 30, 40 years, a lot of our borough will be underwater, and anything that we approve now could mean that we are developing properties that don't provide a secure and safe home for the people we live in, especially on riverside developments. If we look at at the Ham development last week, there was no clean energy, I believe. That was one of the things. And so what it means is that we have this opportunity to mirror up a lot of the council's ambitions and put it into real terms that provide sustainable homes for the future. And it's also worth noting that actually homelessness was eliminated during COVID under the last government. And I didn't want to make a political point. Actually, I didn't want to make much of it because I was interrupted last time I spoke. But yet again, we have a letter. I would like to see more than letters coming out of our decisions. We do have something that we're continuing to build on. That's fine. But I'd like to see some innovation as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Given the time, can I suggest that the question now be put?
I'll second that.
Seconded, it has to be put now.
Okay. So shall we vote on that? Everyone agreed?
On the principle of the question being put. Yeah. Right, and on the substantive motion.
Okay, so we move to a vote on the substantive motion now. Yes. Okay, so who all in favour of the motion, please? Thank you. All against? And any abstentions? Thank you very much. Motion is passed. Agenda item 19. We move on to the third motion. Can I draw your attention to a proposed amendment to this motion, which can be found in the supplementary agenda published earlier this evening? I now invite Councillor Peter Thompson to propose the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The abuse of older people is a hidden and I think often ignored problem in society. The profile of child abuse has quite rightly dramatically been raised in the past few years. And again, governments of all political persuasions have done a lot to introduce controls and measures to identify and tackle that problem. But I'm afraid the abuse of older people remains in the background. Every year, over 2.5 million people in the UK are affected by physical, emotional, economic or sexual abuse and neglect. It's estimated that 1 in 6 people are victims of abuse. These people are mothers, fathers, uncles, aunties, grannies, granddads, friends, and our neighbours. Too often, this issue is hidden from the headlines, and it is a depressing and stark, I think, indication of the way our society regards and treats older people. Abuse occurs in institutional settings, but more often in the home. It can be perpetrated by care staff, relatives, friends and strangers, and it can take many forms: sexual abuse, financial abuse, abuse of medication in controlling and sedating patients, physical abuse, neglect, and behaviour designed to degrade and humiliate. Much abuse is not reported because many older people are unable or frightened or embarrassed to report its presence. We need, as a society, to better protect older people from abuse. And this motion invites the Cabinet member and the Director to explore 4 ways in which we can help older people protect themselves from and recover from all types of abuse. Now, I appreciate that the Labour group is pathologically incapable of not amending our motions, even though there's nothing wrong with it. But can I say, actually, Councillor Bath, we're more than happy to accept everything you want to add to it. There was never any desire in this motion to imply that other organisations, the council itself, Age Concern, all the rest aren't out there and aren't doing a great job. So hopefully we can build a cross-party consensus on this one, where we have failed to, perhaps we have failed to find one elsewhere tonight. So to conclude, Madam Mayor, we all in this chamber, we all in Hounslow, want to build a society where older people are able to age safely, to have access to all the necessary services, can trust their caregivers and surroundings, and have equal opportunity and recognition in society as other groups. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Lovely. So Councillor Gill, would you like to second and speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to second this essential motion on safer ageing in Hounslow, and I commend my colleague, Councillor Thompson, for bringing this critical issue to our attention. Our elderly residents have laid the foundations for this community with their hard work, dedication, and resilience. In deeply troubling that, despite their contributions, many of them face the dark reality of abuse and neglect. The statistics from the charity Hourglass are shocking and unacceptable. The fact that 2.6 million people over the age of 65 are victims of abuse each year in the UK is a national disgrace. Even more alarming is the likelihood that these figures are underreported. With more local contacts in a population of 34,000 people above 65 in Hounslow, approximately 8,500 individuals might face abuse based on national average. The research conducted by Hourglass reveals deeply ingrained harmful attitudes in our society. In horrifying that 1 in 3 people do not see taking money from elderly relatives' bank accounts as an abuse. 1 in 4 people do not recognize unwanted physical contacts towards an older person as an abuse. 1 in 5 people do not consider pushing, hitting, or beating an older person as an abuse. This is a national disgrace. These statistics are a wake-up call. They indicate not just a failure in protecting our elderly, but also a moral failing on our societal values. This is not a political issue, it's a human issue. Regardless of party lines, we have collectively a collective responsibility to ensure the safety and dignity of our older residents. Creating a safer environment in our elderly is not just about policies and procedures. It's about changing our attitudes and perceptions. It's about recognizing the intrinsic value and rights of individuals, regardless of age. Safer aging means ensuring our elderly are free from fear, harm, neglect, and can live their lives with independence and respect. Hourglass, the national charity committed to ending this abuse of older people, is an invaluable ally in this mission. Their 24-hour helpline provides a critical support for those suffering from various forms of abuse, offering a lifeline to older adults and their families. By supporting this motion, we are taking concrete steps to address the issue head-on. We commit to actively promoting the essential services provided by Hourglass, ensuring that everyone in our community is aware of the support that is available. Facilitating comprehensive training of our staff and partners to recognize and respond to the signs of abuse effectively, because we do not see a lot of things that are treated as abuse, and this is a failure on our part. Inviting experts from Hourglass to educate our communities, our councillors, our officers on best practices and innovative solutions. Joining the oath, which stands for Older Age, Tomorrow's Hope, initiative signaling our commitment to safer aging society by 2050. In seconding this motion, I urge my fellow councillors, all of us present today, to look beyond politics and focus on our shared community responsibility, which is our human duty to do so. Our elderly residents deserve our utmost respect and protection. Let us stand united in making Hounslow a beacon of safety, dignity, respect for all its older citizens. And I thank you, and I hope we have your full support in this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. Councillor Thompson, can I just confirm you've accepted all of the amendment? Wonderful, thank you. So we can now move on to the debate of the motion as amended. If anyone would like to speak. Councillor Bath.
Yeah, I'm assuming, sorry, just for clarity, you don't need me to propose the amendment. Okay. All I can just say is, well, I'd like to thank Councillors Peter Thompson and Councillor Gill for bringing forward this motion, and but actually to highlight a really important area around elder abuse. And you're absolutely quite right. It's one of those areas that is quite hidden, as opposed to abuse for younger age group. So I'm really pleased. I've only taken on this portfolio, but I'm more than happy to do whatever we can in terms of raising the profile of elderly abuse in the borough. And I also do commend the work that Hourglass do. I know that they have got a manifesto commitment and have been lobbying MPs and elected members to commit to the safer ageing agenda, which I think is absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with it. But one of the reasons that I wanted to put forward the amendments was to really to add to the motion, but also to point out some of the things that the council does have a statutory duty to do. For example, we do provide a very robust sort of safeguarding training, and I would really encourage elected members to attend. I have to say, unfortunately, when we can't have some of these safeguarding trainings, that the actual numbers are quite thin on the ground, and that's a shame, because you both highlighted today some of the examples around elder abuse, and that's the sort of stuff that you can discuss around training. So more than happy to promote any services that highlight this issue across the council in terms of elder abuse. But thank you very much. I don't think I need to say anything more, but thanks for accepting the amendment.
Madam Mayor, on a point of order. Oh, we're going to say the same thing, aren't we?
Well, I was going to say it's two brilliant speeches from your side, an excellent speech from Councillor Bath. I think on one rare moment we find ourselves in violent disagreement on this excellent motion, and I think we should probably put it to the vote. I can't see anyone voting against it.
I really wanted to say it. I'll second that proposal.
Are we all agreed? Thank you. Okay, so if everyone could raise their hand who supports the motion. Wonderful, thank you. Again, no. And any abstentions? No. Okay, so that has carried, and I'd just like to thank you all for a nice civilised debate. We just move on. Agenda item 20, any other matters the Mayor considers urgent? I'd just like to confirm there are none. Agenda item 21, date of next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 17th of September, 2024. Could everyone sign the attendance book if they haven't already done so? That concludes the meeting. Thank you.